everybody. Welcome back to Of Stone and Clay. This is episode 115. Today we are here with Michelle Schmidt. Michelle Richard Schmidt, sorry. I'm just kidding. Michelle is the mother of one of my best friends, and actually I'm really close with all her kids, but we just have this joke that everyone's middle name in her family is Richard. So who knows what her middle name is, but I like Richard. Michelle is an author of this book, Carried, that I just finished like an hour ago. And yeah, she is honestly just a good friend. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. You've become, kind of a second mom to me, a mentor of sorts, just a good friend. And so I'm just grateful you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to it's funny. We were talking a little bit before we got started, and I wanted to just ask you 100 questions about this.
Mm-hmm.
But walk me a little bit through, you don't have to tell the whole story, but obviously this is a book about you going through the unthinkable, losing your daughter. And it's crazy. I wanted to bring this up, actually. I'm on the way over here. I'm just kind of thinking vaguely like of some things I want to talk about and some questions and where I want to start. And my Spotify is just on shuffle, and the last song that plays, I'm like about to turn off my car. The last song that comes up is a song with Spencer and Annie. And I thought that was so cool.
So appropriate.
And it's the reason this is so crazy, reading this book was so crazy, is because Annie is your daughter that I just missed. You
never met her, did you?
I came into the friend group.
Yeah.
In 2018. And yeah, so since then she's been kind of this myth.
Yeah.
And this person that, at times it even breaks my heart that we never met, even
she
though
would have loved you. You would have been so her vibe.
Yeah.
She would have loved you.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so yeah, it breaks my heart a little bit, but reading this story was so cool to hear a little bit more about her and about what your family went through. And I know, like I was telling you, I know everything, but to read it like this was such a raw experience, because it's probably the first time in a really long time that I've cried multiple times reading a book. I don't usually cry reading for some reason. I get really moved in movies and stuff, but reading for some reason doesn't choke me up very often. But I think it would just hit so close to home.
Yeah.
You talking about, having to tell your children that your daughter's missing, and I'm like, well, I know your children.
Right.
And so it kind of, just kind of broke my heart in new, interesting ways.
That's sweet.
So walk me through that first feeling, that first emotion you get when you get the, not when you get the call, but when you get to Oregon and you realize wow, Annie's actually missing.
It is so surreal.
Yeah.
When you go through something like that, you don't think that would ever happen to you.
Yeah.
And when I got to her apartment and I was going there, I'd planned to go camping with her, kind of see her Oregon world that she loved so much. And we'd plan a camping trip. And I was going to arrive on Wednesday, and we're going to go for the week. And when I went and knocked on her door, her roommate answered, and she just said, "Wait, I thought Annie was already gone." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, she's been gone since Sunday." And my first thought is, I'm a pretty calm person.
Yeah.
I don't get easily, over emotional or anything.
I don't know what happened to your kids, but.
Right? I know. It's my husband.
It is.
It's his fault.
It is. And we've had him on the show.
He's an emotional guy.
But he didn't have any outbursts on the show.
That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad he contained himself. So, I was like, okay, well, let's find her. let's, start looking and let's start calling and let's call people, her friends here. Let's call her work. Let's try to see where she is.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not assuming that she's missing.
Right, right.
Um, and as we begin to do this and we call person after person and no one knows where she is, it slowly just begins to come upon me.
Yeah.
That, wait a minute, nobody knows where she is. So, I go to the police.
Yeah.
I've never gone to the police.
Right.
Have you ever gone to the police?
No, the police have come to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was so surreal.
Yeah.
And I was by myself and
it's like you're in a movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it was raining and I was like driving and Googling the police station and I'm driving through the rain and at this point I think I start to go into shock.
Yeah.
Because I'm like running red lights and everything's a one-way street and I'm just like I wasn't thinking clearly.
Yeah.
At this point I was starting to
You're just in survival mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I called John on the phone and I'm like, John, no one knows where Annie is. And he's like, okay, well, just stay on the phone with me. And I finally find a place to park and I'm walking through the rain. And as I walk up to the police station, there were like these windows that had missing people in the windows. And I'm like, this is so surreal. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
It was just, I go up to the police station and then there's like a ticket booth type of place and they come to the window and I'm like, my daughter's missing. And they were kind of like, okay, have a seat over there. I'll send someone out to talk to you.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe a common thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
And as I'm sitting there on the bench and eventually an officer comes out and John's still on the phone with me, and I start to say, my daughter's missing. And he starts asking questions like, okay, well, was she on drugs? Does she have a past of running away? Did she break up with a boyfriend? Like all of these things. And John on the phone says, ask him if you can say a prayer.
Wow.
And I'm kind of like, okay. So I say to the officer,
yeah,
would it be okay if we said a prayer?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, okay, I guess, And I begin to pray.
And are you frantic at this point?
No, I am not a frantic person.
Right.
I'm a calm, And as I start to say a prayer, all of a sudden, all the walls just, and I just start crying. And I'm just like, Heavenly Father, please bless this man to be able to help us, to use his skills and his knowledge, to be able to, help us find our daughter. And we know you can help us and we trust you and please be with her until we find her,
Yeah.
And at the end of that prayer, he was so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had softened so much and was so kind and was so sympathetic. And he just said, we're going to help you.
Yeah.
And here's my number and I'll be in contact. And so then I just go try and find a hotel and it's raining and I'm going from place to place and I end up in some hotel and I go to get into my bed and I'm talking to John again on the phone and we talked to a detective, a missing persons detective on the phone and then what do? I'm just going to go to bed.
Yeah.
In my bed and all I could do was just pray. Pray and pray and pray. Please, whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Please help my daughter.
Yeah.
And luckily I fall asleep.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was horrific. It was probably because imagining what she could be experiencing at that moment, if she was kidnapped, if she was being hurt and abused, and it was just horrific.
Yeah.
It was horrific. So I drew upon my covenants. I just almost commanded the Lord to protect her.
Yeah.
through my covenants with him, I said, let her be okay.
Yeah.
Take care of her.
Yeah.
Till we find her.
Right. And then the really cool thing about this book and your guys' experience is just how many people came to help you.
It was unbelievable.
Like, it's funny. That's when I learned, like our friend Alec, when I learned that he like immediately dropped everything and went out there and looked for her, like
he was amazing.
It was so cool. Yeah. What was it like when you're out there and you're looking for your lost daughter? You have hundreds of people volunteering and helping, but you have all these conflicting emotions of like you're super grateful, but you're in fear and you're trying to be prayerful, you're trying to be close to God. You're kind of a mess, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you're also trying to be a mother to your other kids. 2 of your kids are in the UK. Like one of your, how old was Sarah, your youngest?
15.
She's 15, so she's back at home, scared out of her mind. What were those days like?
Surreal.
Yeah.
They were just crazy.
Does it just feel like a blur now, or do you feel like it's almost one of those things that you kind of remember every little bit about it?
Both.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was a blur. It was surreal. But I have distinct memories of like being in the search and rescue team and being in their trailer and them going through their strategy, and we're going to look here and we're going to do this, and this is the day that dog teams will come in, and clear memory of the day that they had some, I don't know, specialist, some lady come in and say, just wanting to say to us, that at this point, the likelihood of her being alive is very low, and like trying to break it to us, and, that conversation.
Yeah.
Clear memory of that. And what was really amazing is there was the Oregon search and rescue team, and then there was this whole other entity of volunteers.
Right.
Of people that had come from Utah and local people there, and they had set up their own tent and their own maps, and the amount of help that we had was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I kind of stayed at home base, not home base, but the home base of search and rescue.
Right, yeah.
And John would go up in the day and search with different teams and stuff like that. And I was kind of a person there to greet those that would come and things like that. But sometimes I would just go and lay down in the back seat of the car and hide.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you had moments where you're just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I got to go shut down. Yeah, or I'm going to lose my mind. Right. Yeah, it's weird. When I read or hear about things like this, sometimes I think about like, the few deaths I've experienced in my life, my grandparents or whatever. And it's weird because sometimes it's so sad and so tragic, but you can't cry 24 hours a day.
No.
You just can't.
No, it's true. And you don't.
You get exhausted and your mind like has to go other places, And so there are even moments where you're joking around and you're jovial.
Which was so amazing.
Yeah.
It was so, I can't say fun.
Right.
But it was so.
But it was bonding.
Amazing to be with my family and going searching around and pulling up like a leaf that was like bigger than the size of our head and like putting it up and like being on the trail and like we got to pee, we got to find a place and like laughing together and it was it was an amazing experience.
Did everyone in your family have to kind of come to their own terms of like, like you said, after a few days, kind of the assumption becomes she's probably gone, right? But did you as a family kind of talk about that every couple of days, or was it more like, let's let everyone feel what they need to feel?
It was more like that.
Okay. Yeah. because yeah, I'm sure some people held out hope for a lot longer,
Mm-hmm.
and because you didn't ultimately find her body until how many?
It was a month.
It was a month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Almost a whole month.
that's crazy.
Well, I had an experience in the book
Mm-hmm.
that was unique as because Spencer, my son Spencer, and my husband John had gone up earlier in the day to start rescuing or search. And I found myself by myself
Mm-hmm.
driving up to base camp and never having been there, driving along the gorge. And as I'm driving along, I'm looking at the beauty.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, this river and the trees and these cliffs and the moss and the waterfalls. And I'm just like, oh, this is so beautiful.
You know what I realized real quick? I
What?
realized that I've been up there.
Have you?
Yeah. I've been to, what is it, Hood River?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
That's,
that big waterfall.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been there.
Multnomah
Uh-huh.
is the name of the
Yeah.
falls. Multnomah Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm driving along and I just kind of exclaim, oh, Annie, I could see why you would love, you wanted me to see this. And she said to me, I know, Mom, I knew you'd love it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you just talked to me.
Yeah.
So you're in the spirit world. You're fine. You're happy. You
Yeah.
think it's cool that I think it's so pretty.
Right.
You're not suffering.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in pain. So for me, I had this underlying perspective
Mm-hmm.
that we were just looking for her body,
Yeah.
which,
Was that moment though, as beautiful as that was that kind of like, oh, she's for sure dead now?
so that's what's so weird
Yeah.
is you would think.
Yeah.
And deep down, I thought that she was,
Uh-huh.
so like when that lady came in and told us and stuff, I was like, mm-hmm,
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm. Because I believed that she had, that I had heard her spirit speak to me.
Yeah.
So I had that underlying comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And as people would come in and they would just be sobbing, like her mission companion just came in and just fell apart, and I was like, she's okay.
Yeah.
She's okay.
Yeah.
We're just, so I was able to comfort people, and
Mm-hmm.
and that was such a blessing to have that.
Right.
But I still wanted to find her alive.
Yeah. Of course.
Isn't that so? I mean,
Yeah.
spiritual experiences are so funny because they're so easy
To second
to
guess.
second guess.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, even though I had this underlying feeling of, and for me, it was huge to
Mm-hmm.
feel like she's not suffering.
Right.
She's not being tortured by some creeper or,
Right. Yeah.
that was huge. That
Yeah.
was huge. That was everything for me.
Right.
Now, even though I shared that with Spencer and with John, they didn't have that experience.
Yeah.
And so for them, it wasn't real.
Right. They're like, okay, Mom.
They were like, that's great. We got to find her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
So everyone had their own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with grief.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone grieves in their own way.
Yeah.
And they do it in a different way.
Yeah.
And you just have to be really patient with everybody else's journey.
Yeah. What does grief look like for you now, almost 10 years later? Because I feel like grief is such a non-linear thing.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of comes and goes as it pleases and does its own
I liken
thing.
it to a faucet that mostly it's off and then sometimes it just turns on. And it just flows and you're like, where'd this come from?
Like,
Let's get this turned off again.
I thought we had the plumbing figured out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's different. For me, it was a random sign of my grief that I have no idea what the science behind this is. But I am a dreamer. I've always been a dreamer. And I come from a line of women that dream. They have dreams.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are meaningful. Most aren't, but
right.
My nights went black.
Really?
Silent. Black. It was the weirdest thing. I'm like, I don't know why. I don't think I'm being punished, but it was so weird. My nights were just black, and it was so unusual for me.
Yeah.
And it took about 4 years where I started to be like, oh, I can tell I had a dream. Don't know what it was. It was random. It wasn't anything significant, And then it took another couple of years for me to start dreaming again.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
It's crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's almost like maybe your subconscious was being protected because like the dreams would be too painful or too real.
I don't know. Sarah, my daughter, had dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and they were horrific.
Yeah.
She had horrific nightmares
Yeah.
about Annie and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So for
Yeah.
her, it was different
Yeah.
than it was for me.
Yeah. Well, so what is yeah, after kind of the dust settled and you guys had a funeral and everybody was back home and everything, what does that do to your family? Like it's such a bonding experience, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also two of your sons weren't there
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, one of your kids is dead now. Like
Mm-hmm.
how does your family move forward from that?
Yeah. I mean, you're different forever.
Yeah.
And and a part of the grieving is everyone, reacts differently. Like John was different.
Mhm.
He was really much more worried and anxious and about our kids and wanting to protect them and
Mhm.
worried about them,
Yeah.
more so than, he was before.
Yeah.
And that kind of affected the way he parented Sarah,
Mhm.
and yeah, so the interaction of everything was just different. And Spencer and Sarah were there for the experience.
Yeah.
And there's a bond between the four of us
Mhm.
that my twins that were gone aren't a part of.
Right.
They
Right.
missed it.
Yeah.
They're not a part of it.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Right.
So it was really weird. It was,
Yeah, it's like you guys all went to war together
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like yeah, you can't really explain it almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't get it.
Yeah.
And then they married and they had wives that came in and those two couples, they just don't get it like
Yeah.
what we went through.
Right. Right.
And John and I were, Sarah was such a mess that John and I compensated by maybe being too lenient with her, or I don't know. We trying to parent a child that is really
Yeah.
struggling and all of that. And so it was interesting, when family members would maybe be critical of us and we'd be like, well, yeah, we probably aren't doing it the best,
What would you
but
do?
you don't know what we've been
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
You just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a family dynamic that is, yeah,
Yeah, it's just forever different.
yeah. You can explain it. You can try to explain it, but
Mhm.
unless you lived it.
Yeah. What has been something I got from this book that was so moving to me was your relationship with hope.
Hmm.
Tell me about what hope means to you. Because hope is something I think about a lot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hope is, in a lot of ways, it's synonymous with faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you hope for things that you don't have. You hope for things you wish. You hope for things that
Mm-hmm.
feel impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And, so in my own life, hope is it's a big word that
Mm-hmm.
I I cling to and
Yeah.
I try to find new ways to make use of hope and to hold on to hope. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
always interested to hear.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, hope is synonymous with trust,
Hmm.
and it's my trust in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And so I believe in Jesus Christ. I trust him. I trust that he loves me, that he has a plan for my life, and that he's aware of my needs, that he will help me, that he will deliver me, that he will guide me, that ultimately he will save me.
Yeah.
So my hope is in Jesus Christ. And that is what enabled me, and still does,
Hmm.
enables me to hope for any desire that I have.
Yeah.
Because I trust him that he's got my back
Hmm. Yeah.
and that he's going to help me to have a really good life.
Yeah. Yeah. And like amidst that trust, there's still I feel like there's still moments where you still feel hopeless,
Absolutely.
right? So
Yeah.
how do you sort of move past that and say, yeah, I have trust, but I still feel hopeless.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it waxes and wanes,
Yeah.
right? There's so many things that can cause you to be in a slump of hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be being overly tired or, not eating right or having several disappointments
Mm-hmm.
or feeling like you are praying and praying for something and it doesn't come,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know? And so when I experience those types of lulls
Mm-hmm.
in my trust
Yeah.
and in my feeling of assurance that all will be well, um, I I just kind of pray for help to get through it,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because I feel like ultimately the Spirit gives life.
Yeah.
And when you feel that, you feel joy and you feel um, optimistic
Mm-hmm.
and you feel hope.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's a normal part of life to ebb
Right.
and flow in that journey.
Yeah.
And and sometimes, when you're praying and praying for something that isn't happening, you just have to grit
Mm-hmm.
yourself through. It's like strengthening a muscle,
Yeah.
where you're like, I'm not going to stop
Yeah.
believing.
Yeah.
And we had to do that with searching for Annie
Right.
because, as we were praying to find her, we had plenty of answered prayers from the
Mm-hmm.
Lord. We knew that he knew where she was.
Yeah.
We didn't doubt that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that he could tell us where she was.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
Yeah.
Like he didn't. We were just like, why? Why? Like this
Mm-hmm.
is way more important than anything else we ever prayed for.
Yeah.
And we had one night in particular, we were in the motel along the gorge, and John was exhausted. He had come in, everyone was exhausted.
Yeah.
But he hit one of those lulls where his hopelessness, his fatigue
Mm-hmm.
and everything was starting to turn to anger
Yeah.
and resentment
Right.
towards God,
Mm-hmm.
where he was just like, I'm mad
Yeah.
because I know what you could do and you're not
Right.
doing it.
Right.
And as we were in the lobby, this is one of those clear moments. As we were in the lobby of that motel and we were talking, and John was starting to spiral, you know, our son Spencer suddenly came to the rescue at that moment and said, wait, 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 wait. We have to recall the times when God has been there for us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's remember. Let's remember. Let's remember so that we don't become bitter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because being bitter and resentful is a really, really sad place to
Yeah.
be. Makes you so unhappy.
Yeah.
And luckily, Spencer was able to bring us back out
Mm-hmm.
of that.
Yeah. I love that reminder that I think hopelessness kind of feeds on your fatigue
Yeah.
and your
Yeah.
when you're tired or when you're discouraged about other things, and it
Yeah.
starts to compound,
Yeah.
and it's like to just have that, to look at it like, yeah, I feel hopeless, but like, so what? That's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
this is something I'll get through,
Yeah.
and to just grit your way through it. I love that, because there's definitely, for myself, there's things I've prayed for my whole life, and I still feel like I haven't got an answer to, and
Mm-hmm.
there are moments where I've felt like God has, put his hand on my shoulder and told me it'll be okay, and given me reassurances about things. But then guess what? The hopelessness comes back pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of up to me to remember those moments, and
Yeah.
and to cling on to them.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's why it's good to write them down too,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it helps solidify it more.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you can do to solidify the hope
Yeah.
that you feel to cling to
Right.
when you're not feeling it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the idea that I don't need some huge thing to hold on to. I just need a strand of hope.
Yeah.
I just need
Yeah. I'll take anything.
a fiber of hope,
Yeah. Yeah.
to get me to the next day,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
Well, one thing too
yeah.
that's so interesting about our mortal experience is that we have all of these expectations of this needs to happen within this time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I think God's perspective is eternal.
Yeah.
And so we start to feel frustrated or hopeless if it's not happening as we thought it should,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
But if I can pull back and just say, okay, your timetable, it's going to be okay in the
Yeah.
long run. I know that.
Yeah.
It just stinks that it's not
Yeah.
the way I would like it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's that trust
Mm-hmm.
that he's got my back.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so hard to have that like perspective every day,
Yeah.
you know?
All day, every
Like,
day. Yeah.
because, yeah, there are moments where I feel that and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this is God's timetable.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm like, well, so what? Okay, so in the meantime, I'm in hell,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
That alternative, I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. It's sticky stuff. Tell me about writing this book. Was it really hard to revisit all that in such detail, or was it really cathartic?
So I co-authored it with my sister,
Mm-hmm.
Angie Taylor, and she had studied and majored in writing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, something that she was more skilled at than I was. I was an English major
Yeah, yeah.
and did a lot of writing myself, but she had gone through recently the schooling of, being a better and better writer. And she was not one that came out to the search
Mm-hmm.
and was a part of that experience. And
Yeah,
so she really wanted to write the story.
yeah,
And as she started to write it, she just got to the point where she was like, this is not my story.
yeah.
This is your story.
Right.
So she said, let's do it together.
Mm-hmm.
So she did the groundwork of meeting with Deseret Book and saying,
Mm-hmm.
hey, would you be interested in this? And I was still just, yeah, I was still in la la land.
Yeah,
I wasn't any ambition I had or
yeah.
anything like that. And I know we went and we met with Deseret Book. We met with the person that makes the decision, and they were like, well, yes, we'd like to do this. Would you
Mm-hmm.
be interested? And I was just ambivalent.
Yeah,
I was just kind of, well, yeah.
yeah,
And my sister, who's a
uh-huh.
writer and would love to have something published,
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
was like, say yes.
Right. We'll figure it out.
Say you want to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, okay.
Right.
So then we left that appointment and went home, and I just didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just sat on it forever
Yeah,
because I had no interest
yeah.
or desire or motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the strangest thing. For some reason, out of the blue, it just hit me, and I knew what to write.
Yeah,
And I would wake up at 4 every morning, and I would get up and I knew what I wanted to write and what was going to go in what chapter, and then the next chapter and the next, and I could not write fast enough.
mm, yeah,
And I just put it down in a flood, and I think I did it in like 3 months.
yeah, yeah.
Just came together.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know that if I were, because I have other things I'd like to write
Uh-huh.
about, and I have my drafts and my different, research on different things. But again, I don't know. I don't know why I would, other
Right.
than I have, things that are interesting to me that I would
Mm-hmm.
like to write about.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it was a gift.
Uh-huh.
I feel like it was a gift that was just given to
Yeah, just
me.
pour it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was that process when it did pour out, was it kind of painful? Or was
It
it
was very cathartic.
Yeah,
It was very cathartic.
right.
Because I write a lot about faith
Mm-hmm.
and spiritual experiences and the answered prayers and all the help and all of that. It's like writing in your journal,
Yeah.
and things come back to you and they are reiterated to you, the
Yeah.
the blessings that you had forgotten or not
Right.
seen. And so yeah, it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah. I remember the first book I wrote is kind of a funny memoir about dating and stuff, and I remember when I wrote it, yeah, it was really cathartic, but I remember I would sometimes be writing and I'd be like, I didn't remember that happened.
Right.
But somehow in the process of writing,
It comes back.
yeah, it's this
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
alchemy that
It is.
happens.
No, it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. It's it really gave me like a testimony of, yeah, just the power of writing,
Yes.
you know.
And that's why journals are so important, because
Mhm.
I find that, and when I am in a depressed place, because lots of times I'll turn to my journal when I am feeling hopeless.
Mm.
And as I begin to write, all of a sudden my perspective goes from here
Yeah.
to here.
Yeah.
And I begin to see the big picture, and I begin to
Right.
gain hope
Right.
through writing.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it, but there's this writer I liked that he said, the reason I write is to figure out what I actually think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I totally
because
get that.
our thoughts are so unorganized.
Yeah.
And even
And
though,
fleeting, and
yeah,
they'll come and go. And
yeah, and sometimes we think like, oh, this is a really profound thought I have,
yeah.
but it's still very nebulous up there.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, you put pen to paper, and all of a sudden it starts to like take form and take
It's
shape.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Tell me about. I loved the parts in the book where you were talking about being a young mother, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's funny. Obviously, I don't relate to being a mother very much, but
Even
but
though you're good with kids.
sure, sure. But yeah, I have some matronly qualities. But both my sisters have young children, and
Mm-hmm.
so I've really, and I'm really close with them, so I've just kind of gotten a better look at what it's like to be a young
Mm-hmm.
mom. And um I think people don't talk about enough how hard it is to be a young mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of women don't, because they feel guilty saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a mom, that's just what you have to do.
Right.
There's no alternative.
Right.
And so they feel bad saying, yeah, this has been hell.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to take care of these, especially if you have two or three and
Mm-hmm.
one of them's sick and one of
Yeah.
them's not behaved well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe what's your advice for a young mom that feels like I am drowning?
I'm dying here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have two daughter-in-laws that have young children, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure going through
Mm-hmm.
stuff as well.
Yeah. For me, one thing that's interesting is right now I'm digitizing my journals.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm currently in my life where I have a 5-year-old, barely 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and twins.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
given birth to twins.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like 4 under 5.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the child that is killing me off is Annie,
Mm-hmm.
the second one, the
Yeah.
2-year-old. She is killing me off.
Right. Right.
And I think journal writing is really good to like express things there that you would never say out loud,
Yeah. Yeah.
and never want anyone to know that you said that.
Right.
But I was
But now
just,
you're digitizing them so everyone will see.
well, I also edit.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't edit this, but
Uh-huh.
one thing I said is, how hard Annie is. And of course, she lost her mom because I am so huge with my children
Mm-hmm.
and struggling. My body isn't strong. And anyway, at one point I say that I just barely read this. I was like, Annie is killing me, and I almost wish I didn't give birth to her.
Wow.
Because I dying.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
killing me.
Right.
The twins are hard, but nothing compared to her.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
that's so hard because the twins really take all your attention.
yes.
And so when the 2-year-old's being a nightmare,
Yeah.
you're like, I can't deal.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I get it. It's not
Yeah.
her fault.
Right. Right.
But that's how I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to even write that, and then
Yeah.
as I write a little bit further, I'm like, obviously I don't mean that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
another thing that was super helpful for me was book
Mm.
group.
Mm.
It was so therapeutic for
Yeah.
me to read,
Mm-hmm.
to, escape in my mind, and then go to a place where I was with friends,
Yeah.
and we could just unleash the struggles
Yeah.
that we were having.
Yeah.
It was very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
That helped me a lot.
I think a lot of women, and I'm totally just, maybe I'm completely out of pocket here, but I feel like a lot of women maybe struggle more because they don't have a lot of hobbies or outside passions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, and not just problems with children, but I think if you don't have outside outlets,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes your
Mm-hmm.
life can just kind of collapse in on
Yeah.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
I like for myself, I feel like I have so many hobbies and passions that it's hard for me to stay depressed,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Oh, and exercise.
Yeah.
Exercise was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to just figure out a schedule with John where
Mm-hmm.
he could take care of the kids at some point and I could go get some natural endorphins.
Right.
It
Right.
was huge for me.
Yeah.
And also to feel good about myself.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like I don't know how you are with this, but I feel like depression kind of it's kind of like hope. It kind of comes and goes in my
Mm-hmm.
life, but it
Yeah.
never sticks around and really takes me out.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like part of that is because I have so many things that bring me joy. And so
Yeah, that's great.
when I'm really down, like I'll go play pickleball with you,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll go play basketball, or
Yeah.
I love reading a lot too, and I love movies, and I love eating out, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of different friend groups, and so I love working out, and so there's just too much, like, and I never feel like not doing any of those things. There's always something that, maybe I'm going through a breakup and I feel really down and I don't feel like reading. My mind, I don't want to sit and think,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I want to play sports. I want to get my mind off it, or I want to go hot tub with friends. Like there's just too much for me to be depressed almost, it feels like.
That's smart.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think young moms need to do that too.
Mm-hmm. Sort of diversify their interests and
Mm-hmm.
their passions.
Give them some outlets, give them some breaks.
Yeah.
Date nights
Yeah.
were huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had a sacred date night. It was usually Friday night.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'd have to get 2 or 3 sitters
Uh-huh. Yeah.
because and
Call
we
a team.
didn't
Yeah.
or just whatever it takes. I'm going out.
Yeah.
I'm going out with my husband
Uh-huh.
without children.
Yeah. And not only for your mental health, but for your marriage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me about meeting John, our sweetest John.
He's the sweetest me.
The piano man himself.
That's right. So we went to the
Mm-hmm.
University of Utah. And one day I found myself in the Union, which is the cafeteria area. There was a big table, and for whatever reason, found myself at a table with a bunch of different groups of people. I didn't know all of them or anything like that. I can't remember why I sat down at that table. I don't know. And as I was sitting there, I looked across the table, and John was being so funny. He was being dynamic
Yeah.
and funny and charismatic.
Yeah.
And I just kept looking at him, this cute redhead.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never gone out with anyone like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I said to his friend, I want you to line me up
Okay.
with that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
And his friend was like, Schmidt? Why do you want to go out with Schmidt?
Yeah.
I don't know if he was jealous or what.
He's like
trying to discourage
go out
me.
with me.
Yeah, he was like, it was funny. It was a weird reaction. So John had just gotten home from his mission
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And so when we actually, went out with 2 couples. And when he was like one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
with me, he was so shy and
Yeah.
scared
Right.
and backward and nothing like that guy I'd seen across the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Right.
We stopped. We went out maybe 3 times tops.
Right.
But I was just like, oh, that's not the guy I saw at the
table. Yeah. So you guys, and I've talked to John about this, but you guys kind of just played the friend game for a while, right?
Well, so then I dated somebody else.
Yeah.
Dated him for a year. Thought I was going to marry him. And then when I prayed about marrying him, because I was graduating from college, I'm like, this is the next step. We'll just get married. When I prayed about that, the Spirit said to me, go on a mission. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's not the question I'm asking here.
Right. No, you misunderstood me.
Yeah, that wasn't, So, and it persisted.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I just had to trust.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll go. So I went. And then when I got home, I was awkward and backward. And then we were just a perfect match.
So you needed to leave and get weird.
Yep.
to match his
Yep.
energy. That's great. That's great. So when did it kind of click for you that like not only is John this like fun, goofy guy, but like this is a guy I want to be with the rest of my life?
Yeah. Well, so the story goes that when I came home, the spirit said to me, call John Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why?
Yeah.
I didn't have interest in him. And he had gone to my same mission,
Okay.
which was Norway,
Yeah.
which is not very common. And it just persisted. Call John Schmidt. Call John Schmidt. So for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
So finally I call him and we talk and, we knew the same people. We went to the same mission and kind of at the end of the conversation, the conversation dies down and John's like, well, do you want to go do something sometime?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Why did you call? This
Right.
is so weird. So, yeah, we went and did some things and he had a girl he was waiting for
Mm-hmm.
on a mission,
Yeah.
which was really key because he didn't want me at that point, which
Made you like
enabled
him.
me to like him more.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Right.
Right? It's so dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I hung out with him more and more,
Mm-hmm.
I just realized we were kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Socially, intellectually, um, spiritually, just everything. Click, click,
Mm-hmm.
click, 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 click.
Yeah.
Like he was my other half.
Yeah. Tell me how that love has sort of evolved and expanded over the years.
That's cool. That's a cool question. Um, as you go through life together, so initially I was like, oh, he's everything,
Mm-hmm.
and we're so much alike. But as you go through life together, you just grow closer and closer and closer.
Mm-hmm.
You as you experience things and you strengthen each other, and sometimes you're the strong one and sometimes you're the weak one, and as you're there for each other, um, that bond just gets stronger and stronger
Yeah.
to where you feel like you are one.
Yeah.
Like I feel like something that's happened isn't actually concrete until he knows about it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we have to share everything.
Yeah. It's so cool because in a weird way you are, or almost your goal is to be one person almost.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
you're
obviously we're different.
yeah,
We
and
have
yeah,
differences.
and you're different. You bring different energies and you bring different things to the table,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, you want everything you experience, you want him to experience,
Yes.
and you want him to be a
Yes.
part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so cool.
It is cool.
You know what is one of the coolest things that John has ever said? I was hot tubbing with, do you know this story?
I don't
You're
know.
like, I don't know
I
yet.
don't know. I haven't heard it yet.
I was hot tubbing with Spencer and John,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just talking about life and relationships and marriage and stuff. And for a lot of it, I was kind of just a fly on the wall when a father and son were talking. It was kind of intense.
Yeah. Oh,
But as
yeah.
as these things get, um, but John said, he's like, honestly, guys, I'm not joking. Marrying Michelle to me has been, it's about, you could say it's about the same as being a billionaire. Every day I wake up knowing that like Michelle is my wife. It's like knowing, oh, I'm a billionaire today. Like that's how amazing it is. He's like, it's like I've won the lottery every day. And I was like, okay, that's beautiful, but that makes me think, well, that's possible. That's something that a marriage should be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of love that exists out there. That means I can get my hands on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
So I
He's
love
a
hearing,
sweetheart.
he is a sweetheart, but I love hearing stories like that because sometimes it's easy to get jaded and you see relationships that aren't working
A
and
lot.
yeah,
A lot. Like both John and I had parents that don't have those
right.
types of
Yeah.
relationships.
And it's funny, me and Spencer talk about this a lot, but we say, look around, how many relationships, marriages do you truly like envy?
Mm-hmm.
Or say like, maybe you don't envy, but you're like, that's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have something similar to
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty small number,
Yeah.
So what is it about? Obviously, there's a lot goes into just the right person, having that connection, clicking on so many levels. But what work goes into maintaining that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's easy to fall in love and be enamored with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you continue to foster that love over the years and do what you said, which is you come closer and closer and you kind of become one?
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, for me, it
Mm-hmm.
comes back to Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
because I feel like in our marriage, if you both love Jesus Christ
Mm-hmm.
more than even each other,
Yeah.
he helps you to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because as mortals, we have so many limitations and weaknesses and things that get in the way.
Yeah.
But if you have someone that loves Jesus with all their heart, then he enables he enables you to overcome the stumbling blocks that keep you from being close. For example, like when we first got married, we some advice that we had gotten, an interview we had before we got married. This leader said to us, "I'm going to just give you one piece of advice: don't criticize." And we were like, "Okay, all right, you know." And then you get into marriage and you have things where, John's like, "Oh, I really am worried that Michelle's doing that." And I'm like, that really bugs me that John does
Yeah.
that. So how do you handle that then? So then what we did is we took it to the Lord
Mm-hmm.
and we asked him to help
Yeah.
and resolve it. And he did.
Yeah.
Sometimes we never even had to talk to each other about
Mm.
it, but the Lord would like bring ideas and promptings and
Resolution.
insights
Mm-hmm.
into, like, for me, it's like, be really great. I think this would help you be closer if
Yeah.
you stop doing this. And he was the path to being able to do this.
Yeah.
And the closer we get to him, the closer we get to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me, that was the key.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
he helped us to be able to do that. Have we done it perfectly?
Sure.
No,
Sure.
of course not.
Yeah.
But it's worked a lot better than if we were trying to do it on our own.
Yeah. And I also feel like you guys, more than most people I come in contact with, are extremely open and quick communicators.
Hmm.
Like when there is an issue or a tiny feeling of resentment or hurt, it's expressed
Mm-hmm.
really quickly. Would
Mm-hmm.
you agree with that?
Yeah, that's kind of a family culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
being open. And I think, honestly, I think my son Spencer has been really key in helping that to be a family culture,
Yeah.
because he was always so vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and was so willing to humbly lay it out. This is what I've done.
Yeah.
And I think it was an inspiration to all of us,
Yeah.
because I'm a little less inclined to do that when I'm in the wrong.
Right. 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 Yeah.
To then just
I'll be open
say,
when I'm right.
yeah, I'm really good with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, try to talk through. And when you have this feeling of being close, you can feel when there's a rift,
Yeah.
and it just feels uncomfortable.
Right.
Doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love that culture you guys have fostered, because there are plenty of moments that get uncomfortable and get
When you're
intense.
talking,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you guys don't shy away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, let's not bury this under a rug. Let's get to
Mm-hmm.
what's
Mm-hmm.
going on.
Yeah. I think my kids have really high EQ.
Yeah.
They're not good at a lot of things, but that is one thing that they're pretty darn good at,
Yeah.
is being emotionally mature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, your son Johnny, who I've always loved Johnny, but just haven't been as close with him.
Mm-hmm.
We had a crazy conversation a few months ago, because he felt like we weren't as close as we should be.
Hmm.
And we got on the phone and talked for like a half hour, and I felt like it was an amazing chat.
That's so cool.
But most people aren't willing to have that conversation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think what it is, that ability to be vulnerable and open, I think you have to remove the ego from it.
Mm-hmm.
I think when your ego is involved, it doesn't allow you
Mm-hmm.
to do that. Like you said, like when you're in the wrong, the ego comes out and you're like, I don't know that I need to be open at this time. You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of egolessness in that openness.
Because telling someone that your feelings are hurt
Yeah.
is opening up, revealing a vulnerability,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And you're opening up yourself to somebody saying like, "Oh, dude, don't. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to worry about it. We're good."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really beautiful, and it's honestly it's helped me be more of a vulnerable and open person because
That's awesome.
that culture just spreads. It's infectious, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the fact that Spencer laid it out so openly, it makes everyone around feel like, well, I guess I can do the same.
Absolutely.
Because what it does is it fosters safety,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone feels like, well, this might be hard to say, but like I know I'll be safe to say it,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Safe
yeah,
is huge.
yeah, that's so cool. Um, Michelle, what is this? Might be a hard question for you,
Okay.
but what do you feel like is some good motherly advice you would give me?
Hmm. Fatherly advice, you mean, or just parenting advice?
Just like,
Or me
yeah,
as a mother to you?
yeah, to me,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Let's see.
as a fostered son.
Okay. Let me think.
Yeah.
There's so I admire you so much.
Oh,
I
thank you.
really admire your knowledge. I think it's really cool how much you read and you study and you learn about the world, and your vocabulary is off the charts. It's so cool. And your wit
Yeah.
is amazing.
Thank you.
And your athleticism. You're one of the most athletic people I know. And I have athletic children.
Right, right.
But you're amazing. And your spirituality it's deep and it's real, and you've made some hard choices um, be based upon your desire to be true to your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some of those have been heartbreaking.
Sure.
So that is extremely admirable. And you're great with people, and you're a great people person. So those are all the things that I just know about you that I admire so much. One thing I think I might have seen in you in some areas is maybe a rigidity
Mm-hmm.
in some areas
Sure, sure.
where maybe you're just like, I'm not going to be open.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fair enough.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to think about it because
Yeah.
I'm not even going to consider it.
That's fair. Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think you're doing such a great job.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're doing such a great job of building a beautiful life, even though it hasn't maybe worked out exactly as you wanted it to
Right,
in the
right.
time frame that you wanted it to. And what you are doing to put goodness out there and hope
Yeah, yeah.
and vulnerability, I think it is an absolute gift that you're giving to the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really feel I feel like friendship is a huge way that God like inserts his hand into your life
Mm.
and puts people into your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like meeting your son and the cool thing about your son is when you become close with Spencer, you become close with everything
The
in Spencer's
family,
life. Yeah. Yeah.
all his
Yeah. Right,
friends.
yeah.
You're just
Yeah,
absorbed.
you're absorbed
Yeah.
whether you like it or not. I happen to like it. But yeah, Spencer came into my life, or I came into his life at just the time when I needed a new friend group.
Mm.
I needed a new support system, and I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah.
I didn't know I needed it really. I thought it was fine. But it's been such a boon in my life.
That's
And
awesome.
to be like, to kind of feel like I'm home at your home is such a cool feeling that I'm blessed to have. And one thing I always will talk to Spencer about this that I love about your family is that your home feels just like an open door. That's where people go to hang out,
Mm-hmm.
And I know, growing up, you had other like family members live with you, and you've had friends live with you, and it's just an open place. And it's beautiful because maybe that's where it comes back to safety. It just feels like the Schmidt home is a safe place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you feel that way.
Yeah, I do. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
you're so sweet, and this I told you I've been meaning to read this book for probably 6 years, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
this was a great opportunity to. I wanted it fresh in my mind, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was really cool, and
One thing you asked me that I feel like I
yeah,
didn't totally answer was what does my grief look like now?
yeah,
And I told you about my dream journey.
yeah,
But now I just miss her.
yeah,
I just miss her.
yeah, yeah. I feel like when you lose somebody, the pain never fully goes away,
No.
you know, and it shouldn't. And
No.
it's almost beautiful that it doesn't,
Yeah.
right? Because it reminds you like she was so amazing, right?
And how much you loved her.
Yeah, yeah. And so, um, I saw this interview with Andrew Garfield, and his mom had recently passed away, and he said, the interviewer was like, "Oh, I'm sorry if you don't want to talk about it or whatever," and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "No, I love crying about my mom
Yeah.
because it reminds me like, these were." He said grief is unexpressed feelings, that I didn't get a chance to
That's good.
express to them.
That's
And
good.
and now it's just more getting out. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. Yeah, it's funny, and it's not the same, but I my grandma passed away like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a lot of honestly most days I don't think about her.
Yeah.
But yeah, then a song comes on or something happens, and I'm just like wow,
It's
like
the faucet.
yeah, the faucet goes on a little bit, and then you're left with, yeah, I just miss her.
Yeah.
I just wish I could see her. But yeah, you're grateful that you have those deep feelings, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you do a good job of when you're going through hard feelings of not escaping and just feeling them and going through them rather than trying to circumvent them?
No, I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also very practical.
Yeah.
I'm very logical and
Right.
practical.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll be like, yes, I'm feeling this. I'm good.
Right.
Time to
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just my style.
It's very masculine energy,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It is. John's has more feminine
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very, yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like you've balanced well with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Michelle, you're the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So are you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we did it, everybody. Yeah, we'll put the show notes and stuff if people want to check this out. And yeah, anything else you want to say?
Well, one thing I do think about this book is I think a lot of people sometimes feel like I don't want to read such a sad book.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's really awful that happened, and that doesn't feel like something I want to read.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like what I tried to do with the book is to share the things in our life, the experiences in our life that helped us to have the faith and the trust and the hope.
Yeah.
And I would hope that, the takeaway from the book is one of joy
Yeah.
and happiness. And it's not just a really sad book.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I cried probably 3 or 4 times in this book, mostly because I intimately know the people in the story,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't come across as a tragic book,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's a tragic event.
Right.
Right. Even the subtitle says how one mother's trust in God helped her through the unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
you know. But really, it reads like a book of hope,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's was what was the most impressive thing to me, is that this wasn't a book about tragedy. It
Mm-hmm.
was a book about hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.